Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Sunday, March 30th, 2025. And just forgive me if you can hear the wind through the microphone. It is a little bit cool this morning, and you can definitely see that the weather is turning. No kangaroos this morning though, which is unusual. There's only about 50 of them sitting there. But anyway, on this day, in March 30th in boxing history, a little bit happened actually, a few different fights. I'm going to go through them like I'm going to do every day now, just to give you a little bit of a history update. Let's start back in 1965 at Madison Square Garden in New York. Puerto Rican legend Jose Torres knocked out American Willie Pastrana in 9 rounds. That was for the WBC light heavyweight title. Then in 1965 also, American Emil Griffith, another Hall of Famer, defended his WBC welterweight title against Cuban Joe Stable. And that was on points. That was at Madison Square Garden as well. Then we had 1984. And you'll all recognise this guy, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, at the Riviera Hotel and Casino in Vegas. Stopped one Roldan in 10 rounds for the WBC middleweight title. I remember that fight like it was yesterday. Juan Roldan was a killer from Argentina, just bowling over everybody. And as always, Hagler saw it as an opportunity to show his greatness. He wasn't going to be bullied by anyone. We also saw him when he against the likes of John McGubby as well, and Mustafa Hamsho, these sort of bullies. And Hagler showed him what for. So he stopped him in 10 rounds. That was 1984. 1986, Mexico's Gilberto Roman defeated Japanese fighter Jiro Watanabe by decision in Japan for the WBC Super Flyweight title. And we've got a couple more there. 1996, Britain's Wayne McCulloch, I think he was a gold medalist, wasn't he, at the Olympics, defended his WBC bantamweight title with a win over Mexican Jose Luis Bueno by decision in Dublin, Ireland. So they're the sort of major fights that happened on this day in history. And if you still want me to, I'll do it daily. I just think it's a good way to start the episode, just with what happened on this day. Because I do this every single day, well, why not throw in some important fights that happened too? So, and it seems like every day there's at least one or two important fights in history. So, all right, on to the boxing news. Let's start with the Aussie stuff, the Aussie boxing scene. And now, I haven't seen this anywhere else, but I did see on Boxing Central or Noonan Boy, I think it was, that Michael Zerafa might be on the verge of another world title shot. Now, if that is the case, great news for Michael. Fantastic news. But, excuse me there, I've just got a little bit of something on my eye there, a bit of rain or something. But, yes, Michael Zerafa apparently on the verge of a big world title shot announcement. So, again, good on him, but first we've got to look at the rankings. Now, he's ranked in 2 organisations. Now, one of those is the WBA. Now, we all know that the champion there is Erizandi Lara. He's ranked number 8 with the WBA. So you would think that there's no way that in hell that fight gets sanctioned again. There's no way they're going to allow Michael Zerafa to get a shot at Erizandi Lara after what happened in Vegas last year. And I think Lara, at this stage of his career, would probably rather relinquish the title than have to fight Michael Zerafa again. But it ain't going to happen. There's plenty of other contenders in front of Michael, with him being number 8. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the boxing world would sort of welcome that too much. I don't think really Michael and his team would probably want another crack at Erizandi Lara, and vice versa. But the interesting thing is that he's ranked number 11 with the WBC. Now, the champion in that category, or with that organisation, is Yanibek Alimkhanuly. Now, I think I might have mentioned a week or two ago that fight could make sense, because they brought Yanibek out here to fight Andrei Mikhailovich. This is No Limit I'm talking about. So why couldn't they bring him back to fight Michael? Now, that fight at the time made absolutely no sense, apart from maybe the fact that well, the first fight with Andre and Janibek was cancelled after the weigh, or before the weigh-in, so 2 days before, and maybe they just said, look, we've got to put this fight together quickly. No other promoter wanted it, so No Limit said, look, just bring it to Australia. I think, did we have, what was it, like 2 weeks notice? It was barely anything, and they just scrambled the fight together in front of a very small crowd with a very small undercard, and they just got it done. So you just got a feeling maybe Janibek said, look, if you guys can do it, I'll come out, but it's got to be in this time frame, and he just come out and did the job and went home. But does it have a sort of a Keith Thurman ring to it, where they brought him out maybe to showcase him with maybe potentially Michael Zerafa in the future? I probably doubt it. Because all along the Michael Zerafa sort of dialogue has always been about either Tim or Nikita Zoo, hasn't it? And that seems to have changed a little bit lately too, by the way. I think everyone's sort of gotten the hint that that fight's not going to happen. They don't want it to happen. This is the Zoos. No Limit certainly do, because it makes a lot of sense. But you can sort of get the sense that even No Limit now are sort of starting to say, or see that, look, the Zoos just don't want it for their own reasons, and let's just move on. But the fight itself with Janibek is fascinating because one is that, yeah, I suppose the fight would happen here in Australia. No Limit would bring him back. But does he, first of all, has he earned the shot? Now, I'm not sort of laying the boots into Michael here. It seems like I do all the time. I'm not. I'm just sort of looking at it through hopefully neutral sort of eyes. But since he was annihilated by Erislandy Lara, he's had that fast with Tommy Brown, which went 1 round and he was pulled out. And then he had the win over Basir A in his last fight, who wasn't ranked by any organisation either. So, but look, it makes no difference in this day and age, does it? Because I mean, if people want you to get a shot, they're going to give you a shot. We're just seeing at the moment with Derek Chisora being the #1 mandatory to fight Daniel Dubois. It just makes no sense. And the IBF usually are pretty good with that, but not in this instance. But with this, with the WBC, yeah, could Michael Zerafa fight Janibek Alimkhanuly here in Australia? It's an interesting fight. I'll be honest with you. I think that fight ends very badly for Michael. I think that Janibek, I don't think he got out of second gear when he fought Mikhailovic. I think he just wanted to make a statement and he punished Andrei Mikhailovic, which he did. I mean, he could have ended the fight in the second round. I just remember, I know I've said on here a couple of times, I remember being over in San Francisco. No, it wasn't San Francisco. It was Stockton, when Jason Maloney beat Australobio and Janibek was the main event over there. I can't remember who he fought, but he was in real seek and destroy mode. There was no mucking around. There was no trying to punish his opponent or take him into the deeper rounds and anything like that. It was just pure business, and he absolutely destroyed this guy. He can punch. He's a killer when he's in the right frame of mind, and you just get the impression that if that sort of Janibek turns up against Michael, he could be in a bit of trouble, because Michael has shown that at that level he can be rocked and knocked out. So, come here, ma'am. G'day, how you doing? Come here, ma'am. So look, if he does get the shot, good on him. Good on him. I really hope he does. He's look, one thing, I've been critical with Michael a lot in the past, but one thing I'll give him, it's resilience. And as the old Chumbawamba song says, you know, you get knocked down, you get back up again, and Michael's done that. So many times he's gone to the higher level and it hasn't worked out for him, but he's got right back on the horse and got another couple of wins under his belt, got him back in and then gone again. So you do have to give him credit for that. But yeah, the Janibek fight, if he gets it, hey, awesome, fantastic. But geez, I just can't see a way that Michael can beat Janibek. I think with he's really just his boxing skills, that Kazakhstan style, just they're hard, you know, and his punching prowess, his power, his precision, his stamina, just everything about him. I just can't see a way that Michael is even competitive, if I'm being honest. But let's hope he does get his shot, because it's a tough business, isn't it? G'day, mate. How you doing? Come here, man. A few people out on the Sunday morning. Come here, man. So no other information apart from it could be in the works. So Noonan Boy at Oz Boxing Central, we need a bit more, mate. You just can't put out a little one-liner like that and don't give us any more information. And he has been in good form this week. Noonan boy, with his little grab about George Kambosos offering Floyd Mayweather a fight. So that was amusing as well. All right, just actually still on Australian boxing. I mentioned yesterday, I was talking about Tim Tszyu and the fight with Joey Spencer coming up. But I've just sort of taken it in the last few days. It's probably actually been coming over the last couple of weeks that all of a sudden Oz boxing almost needs, well, Tim Tszyu's the closest we've got to it, almost needs a hero. Because and I know Jai Patai's up there and George Kambosos was before that, but just with some recent events with those fighters, all three fighters, the three biggest names in Australian boxing. And I don't know whether it's Australian fans of just a little bit more critical these days or expect a lot more, or maybe they've just woken up and done their own research and aren't being fed all the bullshit anymore. But all three fighters have actually copped a little bit of backlash lately, and it's something you haven't seen usually. I mean, George Kambosos normally cops a fair bit just because of his persona and his personality, but hey, as a fighter and what he brings to the sport, you got to love it. But Tim Tszyu, he copped a lot of criticism over the two losses last year, and that's never happened before with him. And I think he said in a recent interview that he copped a lot of comments and messages and whatever you might want to call it from fight fans, which I don't like. I hate that. I hate when people direct, they actually contact the fighters or athletes or whoever it is directly. I hate that. Just keep your opinions to yourself. Put it on your little forums and just leave it at that. But he did say he copped a lot of online abuse. So this is something that's never happened with Tim. He's always sort of been Australia's sort of darling, hasn't he? Then you've got even Jai Patai recently with the announcement of his fight with Sequoia. A lot of people saying, Jai, what are you doing now? I think we all know that that's not Jai's doing, and there's also not a lot of fighters in that division, very slim pickings. But it is unusual too that Jai has actually copped a fair bit since the announcement of that fight. And then of course George, which look, I think he deserves criticism, or his team deserves criticism for firstly choosing Duard Jordan to fight. The Jake Wiley fight ended up being a really good fight, so as a late replacement, but it's unusual that we're getting those three sort of the biggest names that we've always sort of seen as the face of Australian boxing, all getting their share of criticism, when in the past all three pretty much couldn't do a thing wrong. So I'm not sure again whether it's just the Aussie boxing fans waking up, or maybe they're just getting impatient by not having a superstar. I don't know, but it's just it's interesting to read a lot of the comments online. And strangely enough, on the flip side, when that Michael Zerafa thing was posted on us, I think it was Australian Boxing Central, when that was posted, there was a hell of a lot of actual complimentary things to say about Michael. So are we in some sort of twilight zone where people are heaping the criticism on Tim Tszyu and Jai Patai and George Kambosos and actually getting behind Michael Zerafa and heaping praise on him? So what universe are we living in? I mean, we joke about it, but it's just amazing with it's not just Aussie fans, but how fickle we can all be sometimes, isn't it? So anyway, just an observation about the Aussie boxing fan scene at the moment. I think we need a YouTube show where we can get fans on there to have their say. Where we can just open the lines and people can come on and just vent. So they don't have to do it online. They can actually get on YouTube, and we'll get on there for a couple of hours and people can just come on and give us their thoughts on boxing. A little bit worried about what sort of people we get on there, to be honest. But anyway, we'll see what happens. On to some world news. Now, the May 2nd show in Times Square. This is the one with Ryan Garcia, Rolly Ramiro, Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barboza Jr. Now, the word is that the whole show in Times Square in New York will be closed to fans. It will be by invite only. And I always wondered how they were going to do this. Well, and the way they were going to sort of section it off and how they were going to sell tickets. Well, they're not going to sell tickets. They're actually going to block it off and only have 200 or 300 people in attendance, and they're all going to be VIPs. And they're going to close it off, and it'll just be strictly a TV event. So, and this again, and I think I've spoken on it, or I have spoken on here about the Alcatraz scenario as well, and apparently that will be the same, where there'll be maybe even less, could only be like 100 people they'll put around ringside, and it'll be a TV event. Now, is this what we want? Is this, in this day and age with TV pretty much ruling the way we conduct our lives these days, and we do everything on, on TV, do we want that taken away from us, where we can't actually go to the fights? Now, even to some extent, No Limit have done, I know they did it during, and D&L did it as well during COVID. That's totally different, and I think a lot of promoters did. But even No Limit to some extent with what they do here in Australia with those No Limit on Fox shows. You look at those crowds, they might only have 100 or 200 family and friends in the audience, and it's strictly a TV event. Now, is it the way we want to go? Oh, I don't think so. And even I think they interviewed Eddie Hearn about it. He said, well, a potential crowd or gate, could bring in between $5 and $10 million. Why would you give that up? Now, Turkey Al Sheikh, $5 or $10 million is sort of pocket change to him. But is this where we want to go down? Is this the track we want to go down for the future events, where, hey, they might be, on the Las Vegas Strip, or they might be in, under the Brooklyn Bridge, or on the Great Wall of China, or whatever, but without people actually attending and only VIPs? I certainly don't. Now, I know I'm a bit of a traditionalist, but I certainly don't want that to happen. I still want, it's okay for the maybe quirky events and the whole Saudi Arabian thing and all that sort of stuff, but I still want our big fights in front of big crowds. How are we supposed to get some sort of atmosphere out of it? I mean, you ever been to a big fight? Even not even a big fight, just a fight night, and there's a big crowd and they're all going nuts. You just can't beat it. I don't know, and this is maybe another thing with the Turkey Al Sheikh thing. Do we really want someone like him just changing the whole complexities of boxing, the whole dynamics of it? Yeah, maybe we can have both, but yeah, I just don't like the precedence this sets, because their word is after this they're going to be looking at Alcatraz if it's a success. So we will see. And I think actually still with Turkey Al Sheikh and this TKO boxing thing, I know we've gone over it ad nauseum, but I read with interest Paulie Malignaggi had his say yesterday as well, and he made a lot of sense too. And his two main points were, with the pay scale with the fighters, whether you're an Olympian or you're just a young kid turning pro, that the pay scale will be the same. So how is that supposed to attract the real young hotshots coming out of the amateurs if they're just going to get paid the same as some other kid who's just simply decided to turn pro? I don't think that's going to happen when you've got the top ranks and the match rooms and the De La Hoya, the Golden Boys, of course, all offering big money to sign these amateur stars coming out of the amateur ranks. So yeah, that's probably going to be the first hurdle. I'll just get out here. Someone's got a brand new lawn, so I'll go around that. And the other good point he made is that the UFC model is you have big fight after big fight after big fight. Now, all these fighters that are in their little league, the TKO boxing league, they've got to fight their way through rankings, and they've got to fight their way through championship fights. And when they get to a championship, they've pretty much got to have a super fight, or a massive fight every single fight. Now, I know that sort of works with the UFC to some extent, but I just don't think it's going to work in boxing. Can you imagine the longevity and lifespan of a fighter if they've got to have, 2 to 3 fights a year, and they're always fighting the top challengers, always fighting the other top-ranked fighters? Now, yes, I know that's what we want in theory, but you can't do that every single fight. You need sort of tune-up fights. You need, if you're a champion, you need those sort of voluntary fights where you might fight the 14th or 15th challenger and you get sort of an easier sort of fight under your belt. I don't know. I mean, again, I know we all want that UFC model where we get the big fights, but I just think at the moment, we are starting to get those big fights. So I'm not sure whether those real elite fighters are going to want to sign with TKO or stay with TKO if they've got to consistently fight the best after the best after the best. So that's the only other thing, especially with their pay scales and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and I really like listening to Paulie Malignaggi talk. Yeah, he's a bit out there, he's a bit left to centre, he's a bit controversial sometimes, but he tells it the way it is and talks the facts and knows his stuff, more importantly. So I was interested in what he had to say. And as always too, we always had a little bit to say about our man Canelo Alvarez with the David Benavidez situation. And Canelo did an interview and didn't make a lot of sense. He was asked about David Benavidez, And he sort of took a deep breath and went, oh, here we go again. But he was asked a couple of legitimate questions, and I don't think he gave legitimate answers. And the first one was, he said that David Benavidez hasn't sort of fought anybody. Well, geez, he's had a pretty good resume over the last few years. And if you're using that as criteria, well, what the hell are you doing fighting William Skull, apart from the fact he's got the IBF belt, of course? But geez, some of the opponents Canelo's fought lately, if they're talking about Benavidez hasn't got the resume, well, geez, I don't know who has got the right resume. The other thing he said was that David Benavidez has been disrespectful. Well, geez, you look at those really spiteful fights he had with Caleb Plant and Gennady Golovkin, and I mean, that's just to pick a couple that really were very sort of nasty affairs. I mean, you remember Canelo actually took a swipe at Caleb Plant. He had a disdain for Gennady Golovkin, but you know what? He fought them anyway because they made sense at the time, especially Triple G, especially Golovkin. That fight made all the sense, and he chose to fight him despite what he thought about him, whereas with Benavidez, it makes all the sense in the world, but he has decided still to not want to fight him. And the other thing he said was, well, he's not in my weight division. Well, Canelo, he was in your weight division for a few years and only went up at the end of last year because he couldn't get a fight with you. So as much as I'm a Canelo man, doesn't make a lot of sense with what he's saying, but I just think he should just come out and say, hey, look, he just didn't fit in with what we were doing at that time. Timing's everything, and it just didn't work. We had other fights we were looking at that time, and it didn't help that he was disrespectful and everything else, but end of the day, we just decided to go in a different direction at that time, and who knows what might happen down the track. At least put a little bit of a carrot out there for us as a potential fight. So anyway, and he did actually end the interview with, yeah, and by the way, I'm Canelo Alvarez. I can pretty much do what I want. So don't tell me who I should be fighting and who I shouldn't be fighting. So, which is true. When you get to that level, you can do whatever you want. So guys, I think that's going to do it for today. Hope you have a great Sunday. The fights are on today as well, so enjoy them on various platforms, I think. I think Oscar Collazo is on today as well, so I might see if I can find that. But anyway, have a good day, and we'll catch you tomorrow.